Hey, welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is the Unexplained Archive. You know, sometimes the most profound mysteries aren't found in some remote, inaccessible corner of the world. They happen just outside the fence, in a place where people are following orders, doing their jobs, and suddenly, the rulebook of reality gets torn up right in front of them. That's what pulls me into cases like the one we're exploring today. It's not just about lights in the sky. It's about what happens to the people who see them, up close, and have to carry that secret for decades. This is episode 22, The Watchers of Rendlesham. New witnesses break their silence. For those who might not know the name, the Rendlesham Forest incident is often called Britain's Roswell. Over 3 nights in late December 1980, something extraordinary happened near RAF Woodbridge in Suffolk, England, a base being used by the United States Air Force. Military personnel, including security police, a deputy base commander, and others, reported seeing strange lights descending into the forest. They went to investigate. What they claimed to find was a small, triangular craft of unknown origin, sitting in a clearing, covered in hieroglyphic-like symbols. They touched its smooth, warm hull. They saw it maneuver in ways that defied physics. And then, officially, it was all explained away as a misidentified lighthouse, or meteors, or a practical joke. The case was filed, debated, and for many, became a fascinating historical footnote. But what if the story we know is just the prologue? What about the dozens of other airmen who were on duty those nights, who saw things, heard things, and were told in no uncertain terms to forget what they saw? For over 40 years, most of them have done just that. Until now. Recently, a dedicated team of researchers, working with the patience of archaeologists, has managed to do something remarkable. They've convinced new, first-hand witnesses to speak on the record. These aren't the names you've seen in the documentaries. These are the quiet voices from the periphery, the ones who've been carrying the weight of this experience in silence. And what they're saying doesn't just add detail to the known timeline. It suggests the incident was far larger and far stranger than we ever imagined. Take, for instance, the testimony of a former security policeman we'll call John. He's still using a pseudonym for his family's sake. He wasn't part of the main team that went into the forest. His job was to man the gate. On that second night, he describes seeing not just lights in the distance, but a palpable, electric anxiety sweeping through the base. It wasn't just curiosity, it was a lockdown. He recalls senior officers he'd never seen before arriving in unmarked vehicles, and a specific, bizarre order to visually track and report any small, star-like objects that moved against the wind. He thought it was a drill, until he looked up and saw exactly that. Points of light performing silent, sharp-angled dances directly above the secured perimeter. He logged it. The next day, his superior took him aside, not to debrief him, but to tell him his log entry didn't exist, and that discussing it would be a career ender. For 40 years, he thought maybe he'd overreacted, until he learned others saw the same thing. Then there's the radar story. We've always heard whispers about radar confirmation, but it was always secondhand, always denied. Now, a former air traffic controller has come forward. His account is technical, precise, and chilling. He states that on the night of the 26th, their scopes picked up an object over Rendlesham that was solid, metallic, and moving at speeds well over several thousand miles per hour, before it simply vanished from the screen. Not flying away, vanishing. The object then reappeared at ground level, in the forest, where no aircraft should be. This wasn't a single, confused blip. It was a tracked event that created what he called controlled panic in the radar room. The data tapes, he says, were immediately confiscated by individuals in civilian attire who showed credentials that made his commanding officer go pale. His statement provides the missing, technical corroboration to the men on the ground. They weren't just chasing marsh lights. Something physical was there, and it was being tracked by the most sophisticated military systems on the base. But for me, the most haunting new testimony comes from a medic who was on standby. He didn't see the craft. He saw the men who did. He describes the first responders returning from the forest perimeter in the early hours, not with excitement, but with a shell-shocked, thousand-yard stare. One of them, a tough, no-nonsense sergeant, was visibly trembling, his pupils dilated. This medic's job was to check them over. He told the researcher, "I've seen battle stress. This was different. This was a fundamental shock. It was like they'd seen something that unplugged their understanding of the world. He was ordered to sign a non-disclosure agreement on the spot, covering not what he saw, but the condition of the men he treated. His testimony shifts the focus from the object itself to the human cost of the encounter. The trauma wasn't from danger, necessarily, but from a profound, paradigm-shattering confusion. So, what do we do with these new pieces of the puzzle? As an engineer, I'm trained to look for signal in the noise. The consistent signal here isn't about little green men. It's about a systemic, coordinated response to an unknown incursion. The new witnesses describe a multi-layered event. Visual sightings on the ground, confirmation in the air from radar, a swift and severe information clampdown, and a lingering psychological impact on trained personnel. This doesn't fit the mold of a mass hallucination or a simple misidentification. The lighthouse theory? It completely collapses when you have a radar operator watching a target move from the sky to the forest floor at impossible speeds. Sitting here in New York, a world away from those Suffolk woods, I keep thinking about the weight of a secret. These new witnesses, now in their 60s and 70s, are finally speaking not for fame, but for a kind of relief. To lay down a burden they've carried since they were young men. They're verifying each other's stories across different units. The gate guard, the radar operator, the medic, people who likely never even met, all describing different facets of the same chaotic, covered-up event. Their silence for all these years is, in a way, the most compelling evidence of all. You only enforce that kind of silence around something you perceive as truly powerful and truly real. The Rendlesham story is no longer just about a UFO in a forest. It's a case study in what happens when the unexplained walks onto a military base. It's about the human reaction at every level, from awe and fear on the ground, to confusion in the control tower, to a cover-up at a level these airmen couldn't even comprehend. The watchers of Rendlesham have finally started to tell their stories. And in doing so, they've given us a clearer and far more complex picture of a night when the unexplained didn't just fly by, it landed. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Unexplained Archive. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who appreciates a deep dive into life's mysteries. For more episodes, and to explore our entire archive, visit our production home at Light Not Studios. https://www.lightnotstudios.com. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi. Until next time, keep questioning.